This trip was an absolute blast, and I can't wait to show you this underwater footage. I was out with friends this week who had found an underwater boat slip, and it was way offshore and not near anything else noticeable as far as cover or structure. And on their graphs, they saw all kinds of fish swimming around this. Well, naturally, being someone that is always curious what the underwater footage looks like, we dropped the camera in and started to look around. Instantly, all kinds of bass started to show up. I mean, there were bass everywhere. We talk about all the time how bass, as well as lots of other creatures, love edges, defined edges. This old slip dumped on its side provides about as good as defined edges as an angler could find. But it didn't take long, and I started to notice that on this particular piece of structure, this one moment in time, the vast majority of the bass were hanging out either on the top third of this old boat slip or swimming right above it. Of course, there were lots of panfish as well, and we see this all the time where the panfish are in mass, there is likely bass going to be there also. Well, the depth of the water right here was right around that 15 to 16 foot mark. But the closer to the actual bottom of the lake I got, the water became much murkier. And what I noticed was that there were a lot fewer bass. In fact, the majority of the fish I was seeing at that depth were drum or sheep's head. Now, on the electronics, we have been seeing some really big marks. But unfortunately, in this case, it looks like the majority of those bigger spots on the graph were not necessarily bass. Now, we talk about all the time that groups of bass often get together in year classes or around that same size, at approximate same size. The majority of these fish, all right here, were in that 2-pound range. But the key takeaways here are, one, the bass were up on this particular structure, and two, fishing for them demanded something that would target this particular zone. Of course, there are lots of options, from the popular jig minnow to a drop shot to a weighted wacky rig sinking down through them, or running a swim bait through here, swim jig. So many different things that we could possibly use to target these fish, but the goal would be, we want to be as efficient as possible, which means coming horizontally through there if we can, or if you prefer a vertical presentation, one that drops through there slowly. It would be interesting to check this, let's say, in a week or so, and see if there are one bigger fish here on this particular spot. Are there more bass? Are there less bass, or did they completely move on? I just love observing bass and learning about their behavior. And if you do too, then my bass behavior bundle might be something you're interested in. I've got 30 videos on there currently, adding more all the time. Join us for a month, 2 months, however long. And hey, if you want to watch a video that compares a weighted wacky rig to a weightless one, it has side-by-side footage of the two going down together, I think you'll find it interesting. And make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.